Hi guys, it's Ross over at the Daily Jaws with yet another exclusive interview for Jaws 2's 45th anniversary. Today I am joined by John Dukakis, who played Polo in Jaws 2. John, welcome to the Daily Jaws.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for taking some time out. And obviously, as you mentioned before, it's actually your birthday today as well. So
It is.
I won't get
Yes.
our 200,000 plus followers to sing you happy birthday, but on behalf of them, we wish you all a very, very happy birthday.
I
Uh,
very much appreciate that. Thanks.
Can you believe it's been 45 years since Jaws 2 was released?
It's stunning to me that it's been that long. This was, I started when I was 18, turned 19 during the production. And that obviously is a pretty different guy than where I am today, but it's 45 degrees just seems like a lifetime. I guess it is. So yes, still stunned by that.
Everybody is. We've spoken to quite a few of the cast members, and they all can't believe how quickly the time has flown. But they've all said that it's nothing but great memories. Can you tell us how you got the role of Polo?
So I was actually in college as a freshman in college at Brown University, which is in Providence, which is it's a different state, but it's about 40-minute drive from where I was, where I grew up. And I heard about an open audition in Boston. They were trying to, I think at the time, hire some local folks, and they cast a pretty wide net when they were doing the casting. And I went to that audition, was called back a couple of times, went to New York twice, I think, to meet Mr. Zanuck and Mr. Brown, in addition to the director at the time, who was John Hancock. And then, after several of those trips to New York, I was cast and flown down to Navarre Beach, Florida, right before the end of the second semester. So I didn't actually finish the whole school year before going down. And, of course, I thought it was going to be a 4-week job. That's how it had been presented to me at the time.
Yeah, and from what we hear from other cast members, obviously they all had sort of different periods of time on the movie, but went into months, like 6, 7, 9, sometimes even 11 months long.
I
How
think I
long?
was on the payroll for 11 months, I believe.
11 months.
Yeah, which was
Wow.
great. I mean, I didn't work a lot during that time.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't on the raft, I at one point grew a little beard, and Juno said to me, "I see what you're doing. You're making a comment on you're not complaining that you haven't worked in a while." So
And
didn't
did the
really
beard?
like shaving more than anything else. So, but
Oh, I was going to say, did the beard get you more scenes in the movie?
no, it had
No.
no
Okay.
impact at all.
So
Um,
a tip for actors out there: don't necessarily grow a beard to try and get more
that
work.
doesn't work.
It
I, I,
doesn't
I learned
work.
that early.
Well, thank you for the tip, John. Had you seen the original Jaws movie before you worked on Jaws 2?
I definitely saw the original Jaws. I grew up in Boston, not too far from where they shot it,
Mm.
in on Martha's Vineyard, which is a part of Massachusetts. So I knew the area pretty well. I remember feeling the impact of that first film pretty powerfully, and it certainly, like for many of us, made swimming in the ocean a little more precarious, or at least that was there was a lot of paranoia about that.
Mm.
And it definitely had an impact on me. And so when I heard there was going to be a sequel, and I was an actor both in high school and then in college as well. This seemed like a really interesting opportunity.
Did you? It seems like you relished the opportunity. Did you feel any particular sort of pressure or anything because it was a sequel to Jaws? It wasn't just like another movie. Did that come into play at all?
Well, I wasn't a professional actor at the time, and I don't know that I gave that a lot of thought.
Mm.
I just knew it was now going to be the sequel to what was at the time I believe the #1 film ever. Sequels are often not great. Godfather 2 being a notable exception. But I had an open mind. I was excited about it. The fact that it was about a bunch of teenagers made it
Mm.
very appealing to me too. And the closeness that you can kind of see in the film. For many of us, we still feel the same way 46 years later. So remarkable.
Yeah, when I've spoken to, because we've spoken to Gigi
Hmm.
Corgan, we've spoken to Jeffrey Kramer as well as a couple of others, and also Billy Van Sant, and they've all said the same thing. There were lifelong friendships forged on that movie, and I think even though a lot of you maybe didn't even know each other coming into this, and obviously some people joined the production later than others, me, when I first saw the movie as a kid, I would have been 8 or 9, maybe. Obviously, I was Jaws obsessed and shark obsessed, so I love Jaws too because there's just a lot more shark, a lot more action, which is great. But the
True.
genius part of it was that it was teenagers, it was kids that were the main target of the shark. I could relate to it a little bit more, and I really did end up caring about these characters and thinking, "Oh God, I hope that one doesn't die." And I mean, the big kill that gets me, even though she's not in it for very long, but the actions that she takes, and I think you know what I'm going to say, when Marge dies,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
that's a really emotional. I mean, obviously it's the shock of the shark gobbling her up, and it's a great kill in terms of the franchise. But then you realize Marge was the one that was trying to just protect Sean.
Completely. I think the way Martha played it, not a lot of acting training or experience in her case, but she played it simply and in a way that you could tell how much she cared
Mm,
for Sean. Um, and as a result, I think the fact that she's kind of a gentle soul makes it more makes it worse when she actually goes. And I think they
yeah,
did a really good job of her death is quite Spielberg-esque in a way. The fact that you don't actually see it, but it's you get a lump in your throat when you see it. There are several scenes
mm,
in Jaws 2 like that. There are a lot of them in the original Jaws too. That
mm.
um, we were shown the film several times when we were in Florida, and the scene where the head falls out of the bottom of the boat, which was done, I believe, in Verna Field's swimming pool.
That's
I
correct.
have
Yeah.
never been able to watch again because it's the way it's shot, the music, and how it hits you. That it's
Yeah.
even though I know exactly what's happening, and I know
It,
it's fake, doesn't
it
matter.
it's one of those moments. I mean, I saw Jaws was released recently in IMAX and in 3D,
Mm,
and I actually did the double. I did the IMAX and the 3D in the same day, and the movie in those moments played exactly the same. And there were people who had never even seen the movie before. Very clearly, there were parents taking their kids to see Jaws for the first time, and you could see the kids freaking out, but also the people that had seen the movie were getting ready for certain moments, and you could
right.
almost like they were bracing to take a punch. It was like they were kind of like getting ready.
Exactly.
Um,
It's quite a phenomenon. I don't know of many movies like that.
Not that have the replayability, I think, after 50
Yeah.
years, it's still scare. But I think, again, to your point, that's all the genius of Spielberg. But also, what I really like about Jaws 2 is that even though it's very different to Jaws, it does have still some of the same qualities of the original. It's trying to echo that and pay homage to those as well. So it's a very smart way of making the movie. But obviously, it was a very challenging production because, to your point earlier, there was an original director that you'd auditioned for, John D. Hancock. And yet, obviously, he was fired about a month into principal photography, and yet had done a year's or so pre-production. How did that affect you in terms of your role?
Well, when it happened, I didn't know, and none of us knew. They sent us home, put us on hiatus. I think we were still being paid. I went to LA. I actually went to Tucson and then to LA during that break, and it was very much up in the air, and then we started to hear that people had been told that they weren't going to continue, and I think we were at Ann Dusenberry's place in LA, and she started she was talking to somebody at Universal, and she was writing down our names.
Mm.
And she would either leave the name or put a line through it, meaning
Mm.
the people that were not going to continue. And she got it into the list, and I wasn't on it. And so I kind of nudged her, and she asked about me, and they said, "Yeah, oh yeah, he's still on this." So I mean, I've said before, I don't think I was important enough to fire. So I think that helped me kind of skate through.
Yeah.
So, but that was traumatic. You know, when we were first down in Navarre Beach, you know, they had asked each of us individually if we knew how to sail, and 201 we all lied and said yes, and they assumed that we were lying, and brought us down to you know, we had intense sailing classes, but then they started firing cast members, and it was really surreal. I happened to be with one, and we were out in I guess on my boat, and out of the distance we saw a Zodiac um, coming towards us, and I started singing the Wizard of Oz da, 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 as it got closer, and sure enough, they were there to take the person in my boat with them, and I never saw her again.
Wow, that's pretty brutal.
Pretty brutal. Yeah,
Wow. And
yeah,
did you get to see much of the script that John D. Hancock was sort of
oh
trying to
yeah.
make, and what did you think of that?
I thought it was okay. I think that the focus may have been a little too much on kind of the teenagers, and in terms of, you know, sex, and it was kind of a sexier script, which was okay, but just kind of strange.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't. But it's funny. I don't remember a lot about that original script that was written by Dorothy Tristan, who of course was and is married to John D. Hancock. Um, yeah, I think you know, I was an 18-year-old with no experience, so
Mm.
the script, I'd done a lot of theater, but this is a screenplay I'd never really seen before,
Yeah.
and I didn't have much in it. I was around, but yeah, I was, but I think they had problems in principle uh, with just the footage didn't look great, is what I was told. At one point, you know, we had a director who really didn't know anything about the water, and at one point, a memorable scene on the vineyard, he yelled out, "Sail to the sparkles." And what he didn't know was that the sparkles are different depending on where you are. So we we started sailing in all different directions, and
Uh,
out of the shot.
so when you say
Um,
sparkles, do you mean the reflections of the sun off the waves? Is that what
yeah,
you mean?
yes,
Yes. So
yes.
you say one
Which,
position, you're going to see them in one place, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, I
yes,
understand.
yeah. So, you know, so those kinds of things, and I
Mm.
think they just weren't ended up not being confident about what the final product would be. So
Yeah.
then we went back to Navarre. They hadn't replaced Tegan West, who was the original Mike Brody. They had kind of a bake off with Mark Gruner, who ended up playing it, and Christopher Knight from the Brady Bunch. They both came down and auditioned. And so when we got additional people, Gigi being one of them, which was great.
And what was it like working with Juno? Because obviously Juno was the new director taking over from John D. Hancock, and also you've got the challenge of effectively rewriting the script and then working with a script that's being rewritten maybe a day or two before. So what were those sort of challenges like?
They, you know, we had they brought Carl Gottlieb back
Mm.
to do Jaws 2, and there was a lot of work going on in the background, and things were, you know, scripts changed daily. Um, and Roy had some say in that as well, had some strong feelings about it. I didn't get the sense that we were in chaos, and I, Juno, charming, a kind of firm hand on the tiller. And he made it much more interesting. Yeah, there were times we didn't really understand what he was saying, but his accent was pretty thick back then, and he said a lot of fun things. But once we started going, after the first disruption, things went pretty smoothly, although they did go a long time. And because we'd lost the time at the beginning, we ended up pushing into winter. And I'm not sure that the producers really understood that the panhandle of Florida is not Miami Beach. The waves were, we had days out there when everything was really rocky. And it took a long time, and there's scenes, I'm sure you've heard about this, where we literally had ice cubes in our mouths because otherwise you would have seen steam coming out. We were pretending it's the hottest day of the year, and it was not. It was pretty cold, and we had our parkas right off screen, just to put them on so we wouldn't freeze.
Yeah, I also heard that they sent out brandy to the boats as well.
Yeah, I must have missed the brandy thing. I'm sure Gary Springer and Kramer had some, but
Kramer
don't remember.
Said he had some. Gigi said she had some.
I'm sure she did.
Damn, so
that's
you were
what they were doing on the
then.
raft. That I wasn't on the raft. That must have been what they were doing out there. So
that must have been it. Damn. Yeah. Oh well, someone owes you a case of brandy then.
For sure.
You mentioned Roy. Obviously, you said that you had a little bit of a say in terms of the script and things, and obviously he was the returning star. From what we understand, obviously he was there from sort of a more contractually obligated set of circumstances rather than say just, hey, this is great, I'll do the next Jaws movie. And you shared a couple of scenes with him. What was it like working with Roy? Did you sense any of that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of hesitation to be there, or was he a pro? What was it like?
It was abundantly obvious throughout his time there that he would have preferred not to have been. He was contractually obligated. I think he felt, and I understand the thinking that you'd have this kind of perfect film in Jaws, which critically acclaimed, box office, records. Why screw with that and just do something to help the studio? So he was not a happy warrior when he was with us. He got out of town as often as he could, which was, so he would kind of pop in and out. He clearly was not a big fan of Juno's, and his famous tanning would go on even long after Juno had said, stay out of the sun. He would kind of whip off whatever he was wearing and would put a reflector with his Speedo. And I don't think he loved that it was a bunch of teenagers. And there are a couple of scenes where we'd go in that morning and he would have rewritten it, and we would have lost lines in the process. So, an amazingly talented man whose body of work is, puts him at the very top, I think, of actors, including Jaws. But yeah, he was ready to move on, and felt, I think, trapped in the Jaws thing.
Yeah, to be honest, that echoes pretty much what we've sort of read in books before sort of preparing for the interviews, and also echoes exactly what the rest of the cast have sort of said. It's obviously a guy who's not necessarily wanting to be there, but he's been professional. He's done a great job. He delivers a great performance. But yeah, it wasn't the easiest shoot from what we understand. No. However, there was another co-star that you worked with, who historically, for any person on a Jaws movie, always causes trouble, and that's the mechanical shark. Now you are in I would actually say one of the most exciting moments in the entire Jaws series, where you pull Michael Brody, an unconscious Mike Brody, back onto your boat just as the shark comes crashing past your boat. I've been always been on to ask you this question. One, what was it like in general just to work with the shark? And second, how many times did it take to get that shot? Because the timing of that shot is ridiculous.
We shot that, Tom Dunlop and Mark Bruner, who, we had to deal with a lot of action. He had to lie there, acting unconscious with this, crazy, the drag shark, I think they called it,
The
which
sled shark, I think it
the
was.
sled shark, which had 100 tubes coming out of it, and there were divers there. But if he had gotten caught, he really could have been in trouble.
Mm.
We shot that at least 50, 60 times, and we shot it on the vineyard. We shot it in LA. We shot it everywhere, and in Florida. Um, and the scene they did, the shot that they used, was not planned. It was not supposed to come that close to us.
Oh,
That,
really?
the jaws are kind of extended, and it broke one of the wires that came down, which was kind of flopping in our faces. Any fear you see in our faces is genuine. We were scared to death. And
Yeah.
after that, I just remember the three of us looking at each other like, what the hell was that? And that's, they ended up using it. But we shot it many, many times.
Yeah, I
And
was,
the timing, getting the timing so that, Tom and I would try to communicate, um, as to how far away the shark was, because we had to drop him at the right moment in order to pull him up. And that was sometimes a challenge, getting
yeah.
the timing right. So that we'd go again, go again, go again. Um, so and there's at least uh, one of the shots where the camera operator was on the shark, shooting it,
Yes.
which I'm sure you've seen pictures of that. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was always as a kid, I'd always wondered kind of how did they get that shot of the head of the shark and then panning up to the boats. But then obviously you see the fantastic shots. I think they were first released in American Cinematographer magazine, and we'll edit some into the interview so people can see them. This is the thing I really like about Jaws 2 as well. It's really trying to push the technology and just the innovativeness in terms of showing the shark and not showing the shark, and just trying to get it to do other things, which I think is, to the credit of everybody sort of involved. And as we say, particularly considering the fact that there wasn't a hell of a lot of prep for some of the key players in that, director and the writer mainly. Quite a few of the cast did film death scenes that didn't make it into the final cut. A lot of them lived. Did you film a death scene?
I did not.
So
I
you
was
always kind of
it
made it.
it it's funny, as an actor, about 5 years after that, I died in three things in a row, which was really interesting. But no, I did not. I didn't. Who else had a death scene? I'm trying to remember.
Billy Van Zandt said he had a death
Oh,
scene
right. Yes,
that
that
was
makes
cut
sense.
out.
Well,
Um,
I think they made a good calculation to not make this a slasher movie, where multiple people are killed. I mean, you've got
mm,
Eddie at the beginning, and Marge, um, and obviously the water skier, and a few others. But
mm.
I think they made a decision to make it a little less. They could have really gone for the blood, and they decided not to.
What did you think of the final film when you watched it?
I liked it. I didn't end up seeing it. I actually was in Europe, when when it came out. Or maybe I actually, I think now that I think about it, it's my 65th birthday today, and I flew back from London on my 19th birthday, and which was just before the premiere. I liked it. I was not in it very much, which was not a huge surprise.
Mm.
But I've worked on it for 11 months, so it was a little different than I thought it would be. But I thought it held together quite well.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, nice film.
This is one of my favorite questions that I always ask every guest. And it is putting you on the spot a little bit. So hopefully the creative juices are flying by now. But if you were put in charge of the next Jaws movie, what would be your 60-second Jaws movie pitch?
I've given this no thought, but it'd be interesting. They're obviously, between Shark Week and all these other films they've tried to do this, but I think it'd be interesting to have a family of great whites that are menacing an island,
Ooh.
so that it's almost more of an army that you're fighting. Could work.
Well, you'd need a really, really, really big boat for that, wouldn't you?
You need a very big boat, and a lot of CGI, which of course we had no idea what that was at the time. That was
I tell you what, though, the Jaws community, generally speaking, they love the practical effects in all of the Jaws movies. So I wouldn't be surprised if a new Jaws movie was made, that a lot of
that
it would be practically based, just to appease the fans, so there wasn't a panic or a
it,
riot.
it would be very expensive, probably, but yes, I think you're probably right.
What do you think is the personal legacy of Jaws 2 for you?
Well, I think for me, it's the friendships that have endured over decades, and
Mm.
which I know will continue till we're gone. We're all gone. So I think that's a lot of it. My Jaws 2 identity is something I kind of check in on occasionally, because we all get autograph requests and things. But
Mm.
I've done a lot of other things since then, which I've mostly focused on. But I think the enduring connection of myself to Jaws 2 is something that I will always enjoy. Um, and it certainly is something to talk about at cocktail parties.
You got some fantastic stories. And what do you think is the legacy of Jaws 2 itself as a movie?
Huh. I think it continued the franchise. I'm not feeling competitive with Jaws 3D or 4, but had those been the immediate sequel, I'm not sure that there would have been more sequels made. Um, I think it's a tight story that is interesting to people. It's one of those films where when you see it multiple times, you notice new things about it.
Mm.
So I think that will, a successful sequel, not anywhere near the kind of creative effort, because it's building on things that Mr. Spielberg created, and Verna Fields. I mean, Verna Fields, had a lot to do with that success, and we were lucky to have her working with us on Jaws 2.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, it's continuing to make swimming on the beach a challenge.
Well, John Dukakis, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. It's customary for me to leave the last word with the guest before we sign off. So is there anything else that you'd like to add or say before we say farewell and adieu?
Um, Please do swim in the ocean. It's safe, relatively. So, although we're having a lot of great whites around here over the last couple of years on Cape Cod, but enjoy the ocean. Don't think about a man-eating shark. Probably would be okay.
We'll hold you to that.
Okay.
John Dukakis, thank you again so much for joining us. Guys, I've been Ross for the Daily Jaws, speaking with John Dukakis, aka Polo from Jaws 2 on the 45th anniversary. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, I'll drink to your legs, and farewell and adieu.
Thank you so much.
If you love Jaws, sharks, and shark movies, then please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and also visit our website, thedailyjaws.com, for all the latest Jaws news and stories.